Welcome. I'm Dee Perry, and welcome to the official podcast of the Cleveland International Film Festival, SIFF Speaks. I'm joined by my producer, Aaron Spears. Hey, Aaron.
Hey, hello, film fans.
As we're experiencing the festival in real time, we're also looking back on our own personal memories of the festival. And Aaron, for you, I think there's a really hands-on kind of connection.
There is. I was prepping for this interview we have coming up shortly with Kat, who does a lot of the projection booth management. Years ago, I spent 5 or 6 years in the projection booth when it was 35 millimeter films, and I was sort of there for when it was mostly film and then slowly transitioning to half digital, half film. And I got to say, I don't really miss carrying around these like 80-pound, prints to go everywhere, but also just the no backup. So like, it was just a constant like, oh my God, I hope that plays. Oh my God, I hope that plays. And it wasn't even just physically the projection of it, was starting the projectors and watching them, maintaining focus, make sure the reel changes go through fine. But it was also the building of each print and then also the breaking down, taking apart of each print. And I wanted to share one quick anecdote that there's films from all over the world come into the festival. That's why it's an amazing festival. But there isn't a uniform packaging for the physical film prints back in the day. So I remember specifically getting plopped down. Mike Went works for the film festival. He was print traffic coordinator at the time. It was a burlap sack that he just plopped down. We opened it up, and it was a print from India that wasn't even on film reels. It was just the film wound up without reels, and I think it was like 5 or 6 of them. No labels, nothing. And I only speak English, touch of French, touch of Spanish, maybe in a pinch. I didn't know what any of the words meant that were on. It wasn't labeled 1, 2, 3. It was dear. We had such a fun time putting that together. But then also we had to screen it ahead of time to make sure it was in order. We can't just assume we did it right. And then man, I don't miss some of those headaches and having my nerves on edge, the entire time I was up there in the booth.
That's really interesting, because you could have come up with any number of different films.
Oh yeah, it would have been a completely new edit of the movie if we put it together wrong. And
wow. I guess you needed a heads up on that particular occasion.
We do. Yeah, a heads up for how to build it would be nice. Yeah. Everybody listening, your heads up for today is the Cleveland Indians have a game at 1:10 p.m., so an afternoon game. So as always, just avoid all the traffic, RTA or Lyft, and get yourself right down here to the front door. Easy.
And as I'm thinking about what we're about to hear, a behind the scenes look, it ties into your memory, because the person we're going to talk with has responsibility for really projecting what viewers see on the many screens around Tower City Center. And that person is Kat Corey Tushner, who is projection manager for the Cleveland International Film Festival. And that is a role that kind of keeps you really behind the scenes, or behind the screens, maybe I should say. And before we get to that, how that works, Kat, talk about how you first got connected to the festival.
Well, I first got connected to the festival when really I just saw a job posting for this role, and this is a very similar role to what I was doing at another festival, the St. Louis International Film Festival. So when I saw that it was in Cleveland, I kind of perked up, because I'm from Akron originally, and it seemed like the perfect role for me and in a great place.
Did you know anything about the reputation of SIFF before you joined?
I did, yeah. So I'd actually first come to SIFF when I was just out of high school. I had come to see Miranda July's Me and You and Everyone You Know played here, and she was one of my favorite directors. And I didn't know much about the festival before that, but actually since then, my mom actually started coming, and she would come every year and she would volunteer. And so, I knew a lot about its reputation before I actually arrived, and I knew how loved it was in the community.
How did you get into the line of work that you're in? I mean, where did that begin?
I went to school for film and video production, and then really just worked at different media arts organizations in St. Louis, public media, TV, public access, that kind of stuff. And then from there, just kind of somehow got involved in the film community there. And I'm really tech oriented, so I was always taking on those kinds of roles.
And your role, as I mentioned, with SIFF is projection manager. What does that mean?
So that basically means that I'm the one who makes sure that the films actually play.
Nice.
So all of this work that everyone does for the festival is all in vain if we can't have any films to watch. So basically, I get the films in from either the filmmakers or the distributors, and I check them, make sure that all the specs and everything are good, and then we have a very intense schedule of what we call ingesting the films into the projectors, and so I'll schedule that and make sure that all the projectionists have all the things they need to actually run the films.
And that's a digital process, the ingesting part. Were you part of this landscape before it was all digital?
I had a little bit of experience with 35 millimeter film projection. In college, I worked as a projectionist. So it's all digital, it's all hard drive based, but there are specific protocols that are in place as sort of a DRM kind of, anti-piracy protocol that they have established for these theaters. So we'll get these hard drives in, but then there's still a system of what we call ingesting, and basically what it is transferring to a server, and then that server is specially oriented to play back these films.
I have a question for you with the digital projection aspect to it as well, because I like you, I had 35 millimeter experience, and I don't miss at all carrying around those giant 35 millimeter feature film prints and slapping it on the platter and threading it up. Digital, though, now, obviously there's, it's lighter to carry around and whatnot. Is there still the fear when anything's running that it's not going to finish properly, if it's going to start skipping? I mean, you're relying on computers. And at this point, to do the projection, I was always nervous with 35 millimeter because at any point it can jam up in the film gate, or you get a brain wrap, or the film just gets flung off the platter and end of the show. Do you still feel those nerves in the digital era now with projection?
A little bit. I think that it's actually a little bit. The difference is with film, you have the film print there, so at the very least, you have something there to show. With digital, if your hard drive crashes, you might lose it. The thing is with the digital cinema package, which is the term DCP I keep using, that's a protocol that is there's a lot of checks built in to prevent that from happening. So that's really the most secure way, I guess, to say that basically there's a hash check built in so that when we ingest it into the server, it checks and makes sure, is the entire film here, will the entire film play? So I'm not as concerned about losing anything with that format. However, we also use a series of computers to play our shorts and some of the features as well. And those just run on regular laptop computers. And yeah, there's always that fear that something's going to freeze up and we're going to lose. But that's also why we have backups, and that's part of my job, is to be prepared for all of that when it could happen. What are we going to do to minimize the downtime so that the audiences don't even notice? If we're doing our job right, they won't even know we exist.
It's a perfect segue, because I was thinking in the digital era, what it has given us is the ability to have a backup or a duplicate copy, or run a Blu-ray of the same thing in the background, or you have certain protocols then that you're ready to go if that computer crashes showing the DCP, you can just seamlessly switch over to another format.
Exactly. Yeah, that's how we're set up.
And on another note of being set up, give us a sense of, is there a command center where you're viewing multiple films and going to multiple theaters?
Yeah, so the staff in the booth like to call it the mothership, and it's a big system setup. They have, I don't know how many monitors, but basically they have 10 computers set up, and then they can route any of those computers to any of the screens in Tower City, and so it really looks like a command center.
Oh, kind of like to see that.
From just as a comparison, you said with for example, the St. Louis International Film Festival. Is that a festival that's multiple locations, or is that all under one roof, the way predominantly it is here in Cleveland? No,
that's really all over the city. I think there are 8 to 10 venues every year, and all over the place.
Is that the command center you were describing here at Tower City for the festival? That seems really handy that it's sort of all together and you have all the screens in one complex rather than the worry you would have if it's at like 8 different satellite locations all over town. Like,
Yeah, it really is a unique setup to be able to have everything under one roof like that, and to have that control to be able to route things different places. Even when I first came in, I didn't know that they had all 10 screens networked like that, and it's just really an awesome thing to be able to have that.
That said, though, how's it going to work with the new locations, SIF East and SIF West? Multiple command centers?
It's a little bit more low key than that. For SIF East and West. Basically, the way that works is similar to like I was saying in St. Louis. I'll prep everything ahead of time and then deliver it to the venue, and then each venue has a different person who's on staff there, or person that we're bringing in to sort of like run that specific venue.
I wanted to ask you, just numbers wise, how many films you've got coming, going? It sounds daunting.
It is, yeah. Last year was my first year, but it was also the first year that the festival accepted digital downloads of films. And so basically what I ended up doing is downloading terabytes of films. So I think we have over 400 films this year, and all the shorts have come in digitally, and then a lot of the features have as well. So it is pretty daunting. The arranging for shipments, a lot of times the ones that are not downloaded, they'll go from festival to festival. So I'm always dealing with a different festival saying, okay, when is your screening? What are your dates? Can you ship this to me, right after your screening? Or there sometimes will be a film, okay, we're screening this at 11 a.m. I can ship it out to you at 2 o'clock to get there tomorrow so that you can screen it the next day.
I was going to ask you that in the 35 millimeter physical film print days, if your feature film was playing at Cleveland, but it was the same time as some other film festival, these aren't necessarily production companies that have tons of money to make all these different prints. Does that kind of change with the digital era where you can just make more copies, for less of a cost to ship out to more festivals?
Yeah, I think surprisingly, that's not what we're finding. I mean, I think that I didn't deal as much with sort of dealing with getting prints in back in 35 millimeter days, but it still seems like there are usually, filmmakers will have a set number of DCPs, and they'll, be able to, like I said, shift them between festivals. But with digital downloads, that does eliminate that. So basically they'll upload it, or they'll upload it to either our server, or they'll have it hosted themselves. And then, yeah, it's basically, you eliminate all of that sort of logistics issues.
When I was doing 35 millimeter projection, film festivals, when they would ship you the print, would put their festival booklet in with the print to ship to the next festival. So when you'd open up the box or the cases with the 35 millimeter prints, you'd get to see where that film had traveled from, which a lot of times weren't even English language guides, but it's still kind of fun to see, like, oh, that just came from, wherever. Do you get that at all with the digital age? Or?
Yeah, I've gotten some. I got one from the Vancouver Women in Film. They have a film series, so I just got that last week.
I was just curious where the films have been traveling around to.
Yeah. We're getting, I think we have a couple from Hong Kong, a couple from India, a couple from Australia coming in this year. So those are always interesting to see if they include a booklet.
Nice.
I'm curious what the biggest challenge for you is in this area of expertise.
Well, I think the biggest challenge is probably just the logistics of making sure that the film is going to arrive on time, and then making sure that it, will properly play. So the process for bringing a film into the server that is connected to the projector, it takes a long time to ingest. And so if we're not getting the film in until 3 days beforehand, we really want to make sure that obviously we're not going to run into any issues. And so I would say the biggest challenge is like sort of a combination of, will the people remember to send me the film, and will there be no issues with what they sent so that it plays.
And the biggest reward?
The biggest reward, I just love it when, we're up in the booth, we have a little window, and, the person will do their intro, and then they'll call up to the booth, and, we put the lights down, we start the show, and then when that trailer starts, it just it has like a warm feeling that just feels really good. I never get sick of the trailer. As much as I hear it, I love it. Like the trailer last year, I was just it just reminds me of what's so great about what we do, and that's just make audiences enjoy coming to the movies.
Kat, thank you so much for making it enjoyable for us. Really a pleasure meeting.
It was a pleasure meeting you as well.
And if you are someone who's going to be participating in the Cleveland International Film Festival by coming, we want to let you know that RTA and Lyft are the easiest ways to arrive in style at CIF 43. All RTA trains and many bus lines provide direct service to Tower City Center, and our official rideshare, Lyft, offers discounts for CIF customers. Visit clevelandfilm.org to find out more. And really, to keep up with everything CIF, visit clevelandfilm.org, follow CIF on social media, or use the CIF app. I'm Dee Perry.
I'm Aaron Spears.
And thanks for listening to CIF Speaks.